Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 129 of the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I've been actually scheduled, I record a bunch in very short succession. So you're obviously getting them spaced out. And I've actually had the pleasure to get a bunch of great new guests that have never appeared before, even though there's some of people that I've been following for a long time, or I know personally. And Jason Phillips is my guest today. So if you guys aren't super familiar with Jason, you probably should be by now. He is the CEO and founder of Nutrition Coaching Institute, that's NCI, and the founder of Coaching Con, which is a big event that's been going on the last few years. I was in attendance this past year. I had a blast. Just what, like 800 people there in person-ish?
Yeah, about 800 in person this year, and next year we're going to be even bigger. It's a good time.
Which is crazy. And everything goes according to plan. I'll be there next year as well. So you and I actually met very briefly in 2017. You were one of the speakers at Luca Hosevar's Vigor It's a Business Conference, but we really reconnected at Kenny Santucci's event. We're both good friends at Kenny's Strong New York last year. We both spoke on the same panel, so that gave us a chance to reconnect, and that led to coming down to Coaching Con. So it's great to have you on. Thanks for coming.
I appreciate you having me, man. It's been great to reconnect. It's been great to hang out, chat with some of the same people, and yeah, man, definitely a huge fan of what you are doing. So it's an honor to be here.
Hey, it's been fun, and just another shout to just like how cool Coaching Con was. I mean, this is Lucas spoke at it, Alex and Layla Hormozy, who were incredible, Tom Bilyeu, Dana Lynn Bailey, Rob Bailey. That lineup was crazy. So superstar studded stuff. So you're doing good stuff.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. We're getting ready to announce 2024, and I think we've moved forward again, which is exciting.
And we don't have to say the name, but you can say it if you want. But we chatted about one of my pals who's doing incredible stuff.
He will be there.
So could we say the name? Is that cool?
Yeah, go ahead.
Don Saladino. So he wanted me to connect you with Don. And so Don is going to be one of your speakers. And Don is one of the speakers at my event, October 13th to 14th. Anybody listening? Registration is now open for, we've renamed it. It's the Evolve Strength Business and Coaching Conference. Shelved the old name because we wanted to kind of not be as positioned into, quote, strength training as much. It's a piece of the puzzle with people like Muscle Doc Jordan Shallow speaking. But message me if you want more details. It's all over the internet now. But this is about you. So something that keeps coming up, you talk about this theme a lot, and I love it. I'm wired to think this way. You're talking about your desire to reach and help millions of people. So we've got trainers. What's that?
A billion. We're going after 1 billion lives changed. That's the core foundational message. 1
in 8 people on the earth, right?
Yes, sir.
That's ambitious to say the least, but it's philosophical as much as it's a technical goal, because it goes beyond the desire to help one person at a time. Now, new trainers, everybody starting out, the foundation is you help the person in front of you. They're the only thing that exists.
100%.
But something has to change for the trainer to go beyond working with the limited number of clients that you can help with one-on-one time in front of you. So what has to change, like in terms of approach, belief, limiting beliefs, mindset, tactics, to get someone to go from that business model that we all came into the industry learning into the type of delivery system vehicle to help more people that I know you're teaching people through NCI and you're talking about?
Yeah, you actually hit on literally all of the things that need to change. So I would say the answer is just yes, because you nailed them all, but I'll unpack it a little bit. I don't think anybody gets into the coaching space, at least not in our generation, maybe today, because people realize it's more lucrative. But, in our generation, I don't think we got into the space and we're like, man, we really want to become multimillionaires and, have all these crazy things. And I think that it was just raw passion, right? I think it was just like, we love fitness, we love nutrition, we love health. Like we want to change people's lives, we want to help. And it was like, it's just like what we did, man. Like the iron bonded us, like the gym bonded us. And it was just like, the culture was kind of different then. And so, over time, I think when you're in the space, you realize, okay, yes, I'm successfully changing lives. There's a lot of gratitude that comes from that. And there's really a lot of satisfaction that comes from it. I think any coach can relate. You wake up in the morning and you get a text from your client. They're like, oh, I'm in a new size of clothing, or, oh my God, I'm down X amount of pounds, or, oh my God, like my biceps are an inch bigger, like whatever, right? And it's like you get so excited, like we love those testimonials, and it's like you look yourself in the mirror one day and you realize you're kind of playing small, and you're like, if I did this, and I think the average coach probably can take on, I don't know, 200-300 clients max per year. That's a lot, right? Like, but that would be the upper limit. And it's like, we go 20-30 years and we realize like we're only talking less than 1,000 people, right? Or I'm sorry, like less than 30,000 people, doing
And
math,
that's
right?
and that's
300
assuming
a year, 20-30,000. That's assuming you don't hit burnout,
and
right?
that's assuming you turn over
Yeah,
100
that's assuming, right?
which
So
also
like
doesn't
we're
happen.
talking like upper level limits of like 20 and 30,000 people that you're personally going to touch. And you're like, man, like, did I really have impact at 20 to 30,000 people? There's billions of people in the world. There's, the alarming statistics of obesity rising. And you're just like, really? Like, I, did I really do what I said I was going to do? And, so I think that kind of gives runway to the notion, okay, well, if I had a staff, my company could touch more people. And so instead of 200 to 300, annually, we're talking, maybe we're getting the 500 annually, 600 annually, maybe 1,000, and then we go, another several years and we're like, all right, well, I get to 100,000 people change. Well, that's pretty cool, right? Like that's a good number. And then you're like, all right, compare 100,000 to 8 billion, and you're like, fuck, like still pretty small. And then for me, I was at this point, right? I actually went to John Romanella's mastermind in December of 2016, and Craig Ballantyne was there, and I've known Craig for quite some time, and Craig looks at me and he was like, he said, you're really good at what you do, and I just crossed the $83,000 a month mark, right? So the $1 million run rate. And he's like, you're about to be a millionaire doing what you're doing, and you're really good at what you do. And he's like, and I just sense that you're playing small. And I was like, okay. And I was like, tell me more, because I had a team of like 10 coaches at the time, and I was like, I feel like I'm doing pretty well. And he's like, yeah. He's like, look around the space. He said, people aren't doing what you're doing. And I was like, well, I agree. And he was like, but they should be. Like, if more lives are going to be changed, more people should be doing what you're doing. And I was like, yes, that would be the vehicle of getting there. And he was like, how do you become the person that makes that happen? And that's like, it stopped me in my tracks. And it was like scary as hell, because it's December 2016, man. Like, Precision Nutrition hadn't sold yet. And JB and crew were still like running the world, and I was like, well, like I told Craig openly, I said, I write a certification, and he was like, yeah, you should do that. And I was like, well, like PN they're the gold standard. Like everybody goes to PN. And he was like, he literally looked at me, and I'll never forget, in typical Craig fashion, he just said, figure it out. And that was like the words I was left with. And I was like, fuck, like, okay. And so all of the things you said, imposter syndrome, skill set, like it was all back at the forefront again. Like I was scared out of my mind again, but that was honestly the place I needed to be.
And let's open this up a little bit, because you're right. Like there was a time where, and I want to come back to PN because it's related to something later that I'm going to ask about, but there was a time where it was PN, and now you've got Martin McDonald and his MNU, which is incredible. I beta tested the Renaissance periodization nutrition certification. So I'm actually going to go through the whole thing now. They're good friends of mine. They're doing killer stuff. You've got Muscle Doc Jordan Shallow's Prescript, and they built out they've got nutrition courses within. And there's so much more stuff out there. And then you look at companies, okay, PN built up and was sold. My good friend Mike Dola built Stronger You. Literally from his garage. It's like the Bezos nutrition Amazon. Had to hire coaches, scale. And then anytime fitness came in, like offered him enough money that he doesn't have to worry about anything for life, and said, here, we're going to buy this from you. And, again, these are also the survivorship bias success stories, but there's a lot more of them, right? I was just talking with my friend Brad Dieter. He's one half of the ownership of Macros Inc. It's another one of these. Their crew, they're such a tight-knit group. They're coming in en masse to my event because that's the one they've decided they're going to all hang out together at this year.
Love it.
They're doing cool stuff. So when I was at Coaching Con, I'm like sitting there in the crowd, and you're pulling people up on stage like Stephanie Fusnick, who I met personally and at a Prescript local thing in Edmonton. She's from Alberta. and she's been pulled up on stage. And what is she like? Got a $1 million business.
Yeah.
Guys like Jared Hamilton is absolutely crushing it. And I'm just looking at this going, holy shit, there's a lot of coaches. And it's not like they necessarily are super well known in the space, but they've done a really cool job of building something that has been able to scale. So are there any key, like, there's you and what you did, but the person listening who holds that limiting belief, fuck, I've held this for a long time, but oh, I can't hire anybody else because they're never going to be as good as me or do things the way I do it. Like, what do you say to someone who's got that limit, and how do you get them to hire their first person?
Yeah, the answer is you're right. They're not going to be as good as you. Like, that's the honest answer. And the reality is, if they were as good as you, they would be starting their own business. And the simple truth is, what you're always, I mean, I hate saying it this way, but this is just the truth. There's no emotion in it. Is you're really looking for like the 90% of the 80%, right? And so you're looking for like near the top of less than the top. And you're looking at it, but you're not just looking at it purely from skill set. You're looking at skill set, loyalty. And listen, there's a lot of people that just don't want to be a business owner. Man, like I have people on my staff. My top, like one of my top business coaches, Caleb Fong, he started as a client. And we got Caleb to nearly $1 million business. And he's like, I just don't enjoy it that much. And I was like, cool, you want to come help? And he was like, yes. And I was like, great. And listen, he does very well with me. I don't pay him $1 million, obviously, but he does very well. And it's way more rewarding. And listen, I mean, let's be very honest too. $1 million coaching business, most coaching businesses margins are 35%. So there's 350K net profit. Post-tax, you maybe 200K that you're actually taking home. So anybody that sees $1 million top line, your take home is not $1 million.
Absolutely. And there's something else in this too, and you alluded to it. There are a lot of really great people. Like most of the coaches within companies like Stronger You and Macrosake, they've always been my example. They don't want to be business owners, and they probably don't want to deal with the forward-facing work time commitment of brand development. I'm very much the other end of that spectrum, where I like the media side. I like doing the podcasts. I like writing for stuff. I like going to events. I like speaking at events. And I've got the bandwidth to do it and still run my company. Of course, there's limits to what you can do with your time. But a lot of people, they don't have the time, stomach, desire to do any of that. And they actually would love if someone, like maybe someone listening, built something that they could go be a part of. And Absolutely. I've noticed that the people who love being a part of NCI, Stronger You, Macro Inc., they're raving fans, and they love working within a community and a culture that they get to be a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
And you can build that.
I think it's important too, as a business owner, is, the business isn't there to make money, right? I mean, at the core, listen, as a CEO, if you're not checking top and bottom line, you're an idiot. But like at the end of the day, the business wasn't put together purely as a profit vehicle. The business was put together as an impact vehicle. And you have to constantly remind your staff of that, because people will come to work every day aligned by a mission far more than they will come to work every day purely for a paycheck. And the people that are showing up to punch the clock and just get a paycheck are not going to be your top performing employees. The people that come in every day aligned by a mission, excited to create impact, those are the ones that are going to come in. Those are the ones that are going to have impact in the world. And those are the ones that are going to give you 110% of themselves in the work ethic that you're actually desiring out of your team.
100%. I had to reform my thought there on this one. Sometimes I had Ben Pekulski on last episode, and I had like total lockup of my brain on something, but it's just, you're just soaking up the things that people say, and it's brilliant. So maybe it'll come back to me, but I alluded to PN, and I wanted to unpack some of this stuff a little, because this is all related. You probably remember, and I think it was probably that 2014, 2015, 2016 era, and Berardi was really the one saying it, and there's a lot of this, hey, you need to develop a broader skill set and be the concierge to your clients. And the first prong of that was to take trainers and educate them about nutrition, so you could kind of be one-stop shop. And I think that was the sort of the prevailing thing for a few years. But I think there's been more of a swing back to specialization again. And I feel like there's definitely been prolific growth of, quote, nutrition coaching. And I think a lot of trainers are dialing in more on the training side of things, and they may have people that they outsource things to. Have you noticed that trend? And then what are your thoughts on, let's say, the trainer coach turning around and A, doing nutrition stuff, or B, building out, because I'm actually literally thinking about this. My brain has been going. I've had conversation with smart people about actually building out a specific nutrition coaching offering that is not just, hey, it goes in with it. Hey, there's got to be skin in the game. You're paying this monthly thing, and you have a structured formula. You build out systems. Thoughts on that whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I always say success leaves clues, right? And when we look at the best performing athletes in the world, they're hiring more than one professional, right? When we look at an Olympic athlete, they have strength coaches, they have recovery modalities, right? People implementing recovery modalities, they have nutritionists, then they have chefs, then they have, mental coaches. And so for any of us to have the naivete to think that we are the best at all of those things is really egotistical at best. And I think that you can absolutely be sufficient, but I think that that's the old quote of jack of all trades, master of none. Like, sure, do I think that there are a lot of people that are intelligent enough to provide an adequate training program and nutritional program? I 1,000,000% do. Do I think that anybody that doesn't specialize on either side is going to be the best at either one? No, I don't. And Jordan Shallow has forgotten more than I'll ever know when it comes to training. But I would like to say nutritionally, and I think Jordan would say as well, like nutritionally, I would be the one that's the specialist there. To be completely honest, in my own company now, my director of education is far smarter when it comes to nutrition than I am, because I have had to, in the last 3 years, go out and put on the CEO hat. I've had to learn the business world. We took a company that was started on my couch in 2017, and we're now a $15 million plus organization. And so in 5 years to go from 0 to 15 million, that's a significant growth rate. And it requires a lot of things. And I've made a million mistakes and I'll make a million more, but I've had to really learn inside of that. So, I think what JB did was genius, man. They were far beyond their time, or before their time, I guess, a better statement. And it's funny, man, because I think in the industry today, it would be a little different. I think their timing was beautiful. JB and I have actually since become friends. I think that we posted a picture in February of 22 and the internet freaked the fuck out because it was like, oh, there's JB and there's Jason. And I thought they hated each other because they have competing products. And it's like, no, like we just had dinner together and like, we're like, literally, dude, like we sat at Mastro's for 3 hours. And like, if you've ever had dinner with John, he'll sit there for 10 hours, but like he, like we literally could have chatted all night. And like, I love the guy. He was honestly like one of the first speakers I wanted to have at Coaching Con, the original Coaching Con in 22. And so he spoke at Coaching Con 22. And, I love the guy, man, like honestly, but I think it would be slightly different. I think that, whereas they brought a lot of education to the space, I think today the space is reasonably educated. And so I think that, I think there's different requirements to be in this space today as well. Obviously my angle was bridging the gap between what I saw PN created and what was actually happening in the world. And I'm a fundamental believer somebody will come along and see what we do and they'll say there's a gap and they'll find it. And I'm not naive to the fact that there's always going to be innovation. And not to say we're not investing in innovation every day, but I think that yeah, I mean, to answer the question, I think that to want to specialize in multiple things, it'd be like going out and getting multiple master's degrees. Could you do it? Absolutely. Does it take a fuck ton of time? Yeah. But then my question is like, as you become such a highly paid specialist in each one, like which one are you going in at? We come from the bodybuilding world. It was Charles Glass. He didn't do nutrition for anybody. Right? Charles Glass was the trainer. Hani Rambod does both, but like realistically, like the majority of people that are in there, they have their nutrition guy, they have their training guy, they got their recovery person. I mean, and success leaves clues, dude.
Well, something you just said there, and Alex Hormozy was one of your speakers, as we talked about.
Yeah.
And Alex talks about this, about people who like start 6, 7 companies hoping that one will take off. And he's always saying, listen, like just focus on one thing, lean into it fully, and it'll be successful.
I'll tell you a funny story about that really quickly if you want. So
let me get this and then we'll get to Alex.
Yeah.
What you were saying about the timing, I think is crucial. I believe that nutrition coaching is very much like online training because most of the time they function online.
Well,
There had to be a critical point, a tipping point where the masses understood that it was a viable option and it was acceptable and normal for it to grow. And I think PN and that particular time frame was a critical part of that evolution. But I think before people thought, okay, well, I go sit down in front of a registered dietitian, or most of the time they were talking to their doctors, or there's nothing. Whereas now, I really do think that one of the reasons why nutrition coaching has grown because the end consumer understands that it's a viable option that they will literally buy. And I think that's what happened with online training as well. Now it's normal. It wasn't before. People were like, what the fuck? I'm gonna like pay someone over the internet to like train me and not in person, right? That had to reach critical mass. Now your
it's
hormones.
also normalized price points, right? I think that that's like really the biggest, the big lagging indicator that you see. You know, I mean, I don't know what you charged when you first got in the space, but you know, I got in this space before online coaching was a thing, right? Like I hired Lane when Lane was still in college, and so like right after that, you know, I was also doing some online coaching just because of the exposure I have with bodybuilding.com. And so, I mean, dude, I was charging $100 a month. And like, you know, today it's like the gurus, they tell you like, you got to start at like 400 and 500 a month. But, you know, back then it was like, wait, you're an online coach? Like, what do you really do? You know, it's like, that wasn't a viable profession. Whereas, you know, today I think that it is seen as a viable profession. I think that the understanding of it, you know, if you want to get into the business semantics of it, the understanding of it is awful. I don't think very many people are actually teaching viability when it comes to business as much as they're teaching, you know, cash generation. But I think that that's a whole rabbit hole. It's a completely different thing to unpack. And, you know, it's honestly like one of my biggest fears is about the industry is a lot of people are looking at it as just as kind of, if you look at the trajectory of a personal trainer, a lot of people have personal trained in their life, but not a lot of people were a personal trainer for life. And the reason is like the business model just wasn't really sustainable. And nobody really taught you how to understand the money you were making. You know, there's not pensions in personal training, there's not retirements, not 401ks. And so it's like you're doing this thing that is hyper transactional, you know, the old trading dollars for hours thing. And you know, how do you actually take that and how do you expand that? How do you turn it into something that will actually support the rest of your life? And I don't think it's being discussed today. And I think that we're on the precipice of truly understanding how that fits in not only to our own lives but into the whole ecosystem. But to say that digital coaching is not viable would be mistaken. I think that I shared stats at Coaching Con. I think that we saw something like 250% growth in the online coaching model during the pandemic. That's since slowed down. I still think we're at an average run rate of 70 to 80% growth per year. And I think that it's, you know, it's not going to slow down, in my opinion. I think that it's a journey that a lot of people are excited about. I think you have the opportunity to coach from home and work from home in the comfort of your house. And it's changing a lot of lives, man. I mean, I credit so much of my success, as I'm sure you would, to having the right mentors. So I'm thankful that the industry is here.
And there's something underlying all this too, and I like to hammer this periodically. We have an industry that does have a tendency to get a bit combative and fight for what they think is a very small pie, limited points of a small pie. When, as you keep pointing out, there are a lot of people out there that you can help who are not being reached, and for a wide variety of reasons. But there's so much growth potential outside of the people that we're already serving that there's very little reason to be fighting over the existing pie, I suppose. I think the real opportunity is to grow the pie.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think like when you're early, you got a bit of a chip on your shoulder. You think you got to like fight your way to the front of the pack, and it's like you'd get so much more out of like learning the draft process, right? Like, you know, when you look, I guess like cycling's a great analogy, right? Like when you look at like somebody that first gets out there and you're like, how do you win a race? They're like, you get on a bike and you go the fastest. And you look at like someone that's running the Tour de France and it's like, well, they're gonna fucking get behind a group of people and they're gonna like take all the stress off, but they're gonna let the leader take on all the stress, right? Because they recognize the power of the draft. And it's like, man, if you only understood that being, and I think you're one of literally the best examples of this in the world, man. You're one of the most well-liked humans, but you're so well-liked because of what you've given to so many individuals in this industry for so long. And honestly, man, like never asked anything in return. And it's a beautiful thing, but like when you get to where you're at, it's like you realize, okay, well, Andrew is Andrew because he is known as a source of value. The end. Honestly, to this day, I don't even know what you sell. And I don't need to know what you sell, because I know you could sell anything. You
Right.
truly are like one of the biggest sources of value I've ever met. And I think that so many people miss that, right? It's like they think it's so tiny, and it's like, man, like you can be so big if you just realize. And I think Alex Hormozy was a great example of that. I think a lot of the great leaders, were examples of that. Fuck, I think Tom Bilyeu, who was on stage, and you think about Tom's strategy to get as big as they did. Tom's whole strategy was identifying influencers, learning about them, sending them customized gifts, right? So the giving, but done in a custom way. You think about Brendan Kane, who's responsible for social media growth, and his early client, Taylor Swift. And you think about Taylor Swift's strategy. And her whole thing was giving back to her fan base with custom messages and replies. And it's like, there's always this notion of like, there's a small group of people that you're going to encounter. And if you become known as the one to give, that group of people that you can give to will continuously grow. And if you continually give to a large group of people, there's zero chance you don't become successful.
And, to kind of answer some of the stuff in there, I think I had pretty much a full schedule 6 months into being a personal trainer 12 and a half years ago. A good example of kind of how this literally kind of answers everything. Around the gym floor, I would smile at people. I would be pleasant. I would smile at people. I was busy. People see busy. And a young man walked up to me once and he said, "Hey, I can't book in my trainer. The scheduling doesn't work." This trainer was like involved in a multi-level marketing scheme and barely working. Big pet peeve of mine. I'll shit on that all day. But
I'm with you.
he asked me, "Hey, can you train out my last few sessions?" He had 9 left. I've given my month's cancel notice on the gym. I had a full schedule, so I said, "Okay, I'll train you from 9 to 10 p.m. 2 nights a week." We made it work, right? Turns out 2 weeks later, I get a text saying, "Hey, I'm really enjoying this. I've rescinded my cancel. Can you get me a price on 24 sessions and I'll renew more later?" He bought 24. He renewed 72 after that. He referred me to 2 friends of his, both of whom trained intermittently over the years. The second friend referred another guy who's in the police applicant process, referred me a guy that he knew from there. That guy is to this day still a client of mine online. And that guy brought more police applicants to a boot camp I was doing back then. Local police found out about it. They wanted me to do it formally. And they've actually been funneling me. And it's only a small piece of what I do, but they've been funneling me through referrals, police applicants ever since.
Amazing.
And there are so many of these referral chains and active. Right now, one of the first clients I've ever trained, I used to train, started with her 2 sons, one of whom still one of my best friends. She is in my house right now. She owns a cleaning company. She cleans my house. I train her twice a week. And that family has referred me well over 20 clients over the years, and which leads to thousands of hours. And what this has done, if you do a really good job there, it frees you up to then start doing things like podcasting or writing a bit. And then that turned into opportunities that blew up into T Nation, then Muscle Fitness and Men's Health and what have you. And then I just like going to conferences. So I would show up and support people. Showed up at Luca's because, hey, this lineup is great. I met Adam Bornstein. I loved Adam's stuff. Love Pete Dupuis stuff. Love Mark Fisher stuff. Just had Adam and Pete on the podcast. Adam first time, Pete like multiple times because I like their stuff. I'm promoting Adam's new book, which is incredible. Like this stuff just comes around. And you're right. I have a pet peeve. I don't like it when people ask to come on the podcast. I don't like it when people ask me, "Hey, can I come speak at your conference?" It drives me fucking crazy. So I'm wired to just continue. And I tell people do this, do the work, build the stuff, go write, go do the podcast. If you're going to ask anything of someone, like bring them on a podcast, it's got to be such a valuable ask that it's a no-brainer for them. Like, don't go send a DM to Alex Hormozy and tell him, "Hey, like I just started a podcast. Will you come be a guest?" Like that doesn't work. You got to build up things. And honestly, I think most coaches would be better served looking at the people who are on the same journey path they are, in a similar place, maybe a little bit behind, maybe a little bit ahead, showing up, supporting those people instead of actually trying to curry the favor of the Luca Hosevars and the Don Saladinos. Now, if you get an opportunity where you can do a kindness to support those people, amazing. And you'd be shocked at how great and how giving and how awesome those guys are. Like you'll see it from interacting with them. I think
100%.
a lot of people they're in too much of a rush for status. And they're very transactional, self-serving in always asking for things. Now, I think if you're smart about stuff, there's nothing wrong with making a strategic ask when you can deliver on a ton of value. But I think too many people make asks that really, they may be disguised as gives, but they're really asks. And the only person who's getting any value out of it is the person doing the asking. And if you can pause and look yourself in the mirror and really go, who benefits most from this? Then you start turning around and figuring out ways to be valuable to support other people, because there's nothing more fulfilling than doing something. Like recently, I just connected Luca with a potential speaking opportunity. Luca's got anything he wants, but yet a connection that I have. And well, you reached out to me asking about connecting you with Don Saladino. Don's a good friend. Absolutely. I love doing things like that. That to me is more fulfilling. And you're right. You develop a reputation as someone who wants to support other people, or you develop a reputation as someone who's a taker. And we know and smell takers, and takers very quickly stop getting opportunities. And if you instill this stuff early in your career, then you take the road of being a giver. Go read the book, Go Giver. Phenomenal book. I promise you, it's going to take you so much further.
There's there's two things that come to mind when you say that. The first is really simple, is if you go to events and you look around and you see who hangs out with each other, you'll quickly realize that the groups that are always together are the ones that they're all the same. They will give the shirt off their back. They will do absolutely anything for you. I mean, I can tell you, and I'm sure you're the same, like from hosting an event, the way that speakers behave before the event tells you everything about who they are. So like, what they expect from fees and travel and like the accommodations and like there's the way they interact, like their willingness to promote, like it's completely different. So like just go observe, like be observant. But I think maybe the most important thing is, I'm very fascinated with the concept of desires and necessities. And I think so many people have this, they put their back against the wall where they quote unquote need to be successful, right? And inside of this need comes all of the shit that you shouldn't do, right? You severely discount your prices, you make asks that you shouldn't ask, you sell products to people that shouldn't be buying your product, you like you do all these things where you're just like, man, like I'm just doing it for the dollar. Whereas like if you come in and you have this strong desire to become successful, and you literally operate purely with desire, because desire will reveal the right actions, right? Like when there's a will, there's a way. And so like you have the will, the way reveals itself. And it's like, I think if more people did that, we would see more success. But like, again, coming back to the business side of things, I see so many people, they have their first $10,000 month. And what do? They go spend 8,000 of it. Well, motherfucker, you're in the red because you didn't even make $8,000 post-tax. So you're already in the red. And so now we're in the need side of the equation already based on 1 month of poor behavior, right? Whereas you got $10,000, which means you got a couple clients. The only thing you need to do is deliver an amazing result. Your desire should still be to continue creating impact. So don't change your life based off of that. It's like, have the same desires. So many people they have it so ass backwards, man. And it's like the number of individuals I've met that are purely, their life is running them instead of them truly running their life is so unfortunate in this space.
And you started with success. People have, first of all, the idea of success is kind of nebulous, but people often have different ideas of how they define success. And I find that the two ways that people look at success are financial or status. And those are two underlying human desires.
Yep.
And this is really tying something together you've alluded to several times. I really do believe that if you do it for the right reasons, you're passionate about it, you show up to serve other people, both financial success and status will be byproducts of you doing really great work. I try to caution coaches on not trying to look at things through the lens of status, because most people will. And you can tell when you interact with people who is a status thinker, who craves and desires status. And usually people who are asking a lot are seeking status.
Yeah.
When you look at the people who actually have the highest status in our industry, who are people like John Berardi and many other people, yourself, Don Saladino, Luca, what do you notice? What's the common denominator?
It's funny as you say that because I think Luca's really intelligent in all walks of life. So like I'll leave him to the side and I'm sure Don is as well. I don't know him as well yet. But I think if you asked me and John Berardi anything about social media, we would look at you like a deer in headlights because A, we just don't care about it that much, and B, like it's not how we like built our business. We weren't like, oh my gosh, I have to become this big thing. Whereas I think so many people have that backwards. Like, oh my God, if I have a big business, everyone's going to know who I am. If everyone knows who I am, it's like you said, it's a status thing, right? Um, it's funny because I spoke at Gym Con a couple weeks ago and I was on stage with Flex Lewis, and one of the questions they asked was like, "Oh, you're both known online. Like, how did you do it?" And I was like, you want to know the truth? I'm like, the truth is, I just was really good at what I did, and like enough people asked me to like come on their podcast and like or like have talk with them, and like I'm like, honestly, like the reputation just kind of spread. I'm like, I genuinely have never once in my life done anything to facilitate exposure for myself. I have literally at this, I mean, CEO of $50 million or $15 million company. I literally just spend time trying to help people, man. Like I feel like I do the same thing today that I did in 2014 when I started my coaching business, which is I wake up and I find ways to help people. And that's it, right? Like I don't help the end consumer as much because I don't coach nutrition as much, but I help my team. And if I help my team, they can help our clients. If they help our clients, they're going to refer people to us. And it's like the ripple effect is always there. And I think that it's just like, it's that easy. It's that simple. I won't say it's easy, but it's that simple. And so many people don't want it to be that simple. They want to blame the notion that they're not successful on it must be some complex algorithm thing. And it's like, no, like you just want the wrong shit or you're just not willing to work hard enough. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And again, tying the idea of like, say, social media following to success is a very bad, that's a very bad
Slippery slope.
And there's a whole bunch of dimensions. Like I think Alex Hormozy does a good job with this. The coaches who malign social media, people with social media followers have it wrong because
Amen. Amen.
they're living in a sour grapes mentality. They, for whatever reason, because usually I find that people are complaining about it, they actually crave the status the most, and they're just kind of upset because they don't have the trappings of what they think comes with it, which is not what you think. And then you get the people who will fake it and they'll literally buy followers, which is a really stupid move. And if anybody here has like ever done that shit, like hopefully you've evolved past it. The goal is not to shame you. It's like, hey, that's not a good road to take. But I've also seen, we know a lot of great people who are very savvy with social media who are having incredible impact. And this comes down to impact, right? You're giving impact. How can you change more lives? And Hormozy talks about this relentlessly about how he used to want to kind of be hidden away in the background. And then he had this conversation with Dean Graziosi about, Dean's large following and like, how do you deal with like someone coming up and interrupting your dinner? And Dean's like, man, if like a couple of people are like overly enthusiastic and like interrupt my dinner, sometime, and that's the price I pay to be able to actually like influence and scale and help that many more people, that's an easy price to pay. And it was a switch for Alex. And that's where Alex and Layla turned around and just decided, okay, cool, we're going to lean into personal brand development. And this is what people mistake. They think that they worked on like social media following. No, they aggressively built personal brand. And that's my mantra as well. If you aggressively build personal brand is more than just social media following. It's certainly it's relationship capital, absolutely. But I think you can build an incredible personal brand simply by giving and supporting other people. And I think that's true of so many of the people, your Gary Vaynerchuk's, your Lewis Houses, and Alex and Layla at their heart. Alex is very transparent that one of his goals is to be financially successful. But my God, he's created a vehicle where he's giving, like he says, his free shit is going to be better than most people's paid shit, right? And if you look at the heart of all these people, and I think the people that are successful in our industry, they're really wired to create more impact. And I really do think that the social media following, the status that we perceive, and the financial success are really byproducts of just leaning into having as much of a positive impact as we possibly can.
Success in and of itself, whatever the definition of that is always a lagging indicator, right? it's, when I teach business, I always say, like, money, revenue is just a lagging indicator. It stems from doing all the right things. Sales is a lagging indicator. At the end of the day, I mean, we break business down. It's like, can you get leads? Do you know what to say to leads? Can you close them? And can you actually fulfill on your promises? Then can you have the infrastructure to support it at scale? Like, it's really that simple. But success is like, well, did I start in the right place? Did I get the leads? And it's like, cool. Then did I nurture them appropriately? Cool. Then did I make the right offer? Cool. Then did we fulfill on our promises? Then did we ascend? Then did we fulfill? Like, then did we support? Like, it's not overly difficult, but we always look at the end thing thinking we can go 0 to 100. It's like, our clients, the weight loss is a fucking lagging indicator. You don't just wake up in the morning and create weight loss. You do a lot of things over time that, when combined together, facilitate weight loss. And if we only focus on the weight loss, there is no direct way to do it. And it's like, great, let the weight loss happen. The same thing we preach to our clients, let the weight loss happen as a byproduct of continuing to do the right shit. It's the number of parallels in business success and fitness and nutrition success are ridiculous. I think that, like, and I honestly think that's why our industry is growing at such like an alarming rate, is because I think we're starting to figure it out. The actions are so insanely parallel. I think it's why so many online coaches think that they're business gurus. But
I'll give a perfect little microcosm example. It's the coach who wants to grow their social media and then posts for a few days. Maybe they post for 2 weeks, and they haven't seen much follower growth or haven't gained any traction, so they quit. And they're the same people who are telling their clients, well, it's only been 2 weeks, you haven't seen much change on the scale, you just got to keep going. It's a perfect analogy.
It literally is exactly that. I mean, I don't, I tell people that all the time, and they're like, oh, I didn't make 10 grand in 2 days. And I'm like, dope. Like, did your clients lose 10 pounds in 2 days? Well, no, I would never tell them to do that. And I'm like, why are you telling yourself to fucking achieve these outrageous goals in 2 days? I'm like, come on. But yeah, it's it's flawed mindset. But again, it's like, okay, well, why do you think you deserve such outrageous things? I think I believe we live in a world today that is far more entitled than it was even just 5 years ago and 10 years ago. But there's this weird entitlement that I think people deserve something. And it's like, man, I don't deserve shit. Like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm grateful I'm breathing. I don't deserve to wake up and be breathing. Like, I was given the opportunity, which means now I have the opportunity to go and do a bunch of other things. And it's like, I think you sometimes have to, you sometimes got to check yourself, and you got to remind yourself, like, the time here is finite. That is the one resource in our life that is definitively finite, is we are like our time on this earth is limited. And it's like, if you're going to waste that thinking that the world owes you something, like, we should not hang out, because we're just not the same.
We speak the same language, have the same
100%.
ethos. Jason, this has been amazing. It's been one of my, I mean, I love the conversation I get to have. The real reason why I do this podcast is because of these connectivity points, share the people I bring on, but it's really quite selfish for me to spend an hour picking someone's brain and listening to them. I will, if the universe lines up as it should, we talk off air about dates and what have you, I should be boots on ground at Coaching Con next year. Is there anything that you have coming up, anything you want to share with everybody? I think you guys do a second event, a nutrition.
Yeah, we have one in October. We have the Nutritional Coaching Summit. I know Lane's coming, Bill Campbell's coming, Rachel Shear, a couple other names that are coming out to speak there. For us, anyone that's interested in NCI, that's the first time we're doing a live certification in over 2 years. The first time we're going to do it in person, which is always a good time. Lots of question and answer goes down in that. So excited to be doing that there. And yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, like I said in the beginning, the mission's impact, man. Like, I always love when people are like, where do you want me to send traffic? I'm like, if people are interested, man, like, hit me up. I'm happy to help. But like, I'm not here to sell shit, man. Like, at the end of the day, I want to help you. And so, like, if I can help you, please, by all means, let me know, because then I wouldn't be fulfilling my purpose if I wasn't. But like, if not, then I hope that, you feel as though the 50 minutes you've invested in, listening to us talk, I hope it was time well invested. It's time to never get back. So I hope it was worthwhile to you. And, more than anything, man, I just encourage everyone to do whatever it is they desire to do. I look at us, man, and it's, 10 years ago, like, where were we? Like, we were just beginning, and we were nobody. And it's like, here I am, and I tell everyone, I still, as at 38 years old, and financially successful, whatever that word means, like, I still identify as the anorexic kid when I was 19. I still feel like I'm that same kid. I still feel like I'm on the come up. I still feel like I'm on the chase. I still feel like there's things I need to change. And so nothing's any different. And so the only difference in my life has been I made a decision to continuously take action, and decision to continuously create impact. And that decision has served me well. So if there's anyone listening that just is lost, or doesn't know what to do, just find a way to help someone, because it will open up a lot of doors.
And to what you said, I often find that the most valuable things that I expose myself to, audiobooks, podcasts, smart people, it's not tactical. It's often attitudinal. It's often philosophy. And I like several key shifts in the way I've gone about things have come from reading books like Seth Godin's Linchpin, or Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way, or other things. And sometimes you hear things and it may have to sit and marinate for a little while, or maybe it'll hit you like a lightning bolt. But either way, if it shifts something that lets you put aside a limiting belief, a lot of the time this is really just about sitting in the fixed mindset of whatever limiting beliefs keep you safe within that bubble, that you don't put yourself out there for fear of ridicule or failure. And I'm all about, like, let's shatter those beliefs. Let's challenge them, and let's put you guys in front of people I think are smart, who could possibly help you. So what's your Instagram, so people can go follow you there as a pipeline to finding anything else?
Yeah, NCI_CEO_Jason. Hit me up, send me a DM. Again, happy to help. If you want to come to NCI, tell me you came from Andrew. I'll make sure you get the biggest discount I possibly can do. Like, take care of his crew, of course. But yeah, I mean, more than anything, just let me know what I can do.
Thank you, Jason. This has been a real pleasure. Thank you, everybody listening. Go check out what Jason is doing. The resources are there to simply make you guys better. I've got more great guests coming up. I hope you've enjoyed the recent string of mostly new guests. I've had a few great repeats like Pete Dupuis. And if you're someone finding this through Jason's media, well, guess what? I've thrown around a lot of names that we both really like and support. So if you scroll through the people I've had on, you're going to find a lot of your favorites, and you may just choose to stick around. Guys, thank you so much.